Hey, so I'm going to give this pick a B. And the reason I'm going to give it a B is Baker Mayfield is a good player, but I can't sit here and say that he's the best player in the draft. And if I'm going to take a quarterback, typically I like to take a quarterback with special traits. Baker Mayfield is an outstanding college player. He does a great job of getting the ball out of his hands. He has been very, very productive. But look, he's under 6'1". He doesn't have world-class athleticism. And I really don't know if he has a big-time arm. It will be interesting to see how this plays. And I'm going to go all the way back to the summer. I compared Baker Mayfield to Tyrod Taylor. Now you got Tyrod and his clone in the same quarterback room. Let's see how that works out down the line. Hey, look, I absolutely love this pick for the New York Giants. And part of the reason I love it is because if Dave Gettleman and the Giants management, if they're committed to Eli Manning and they believe that he still has a few years of championship caliber football, then they need to do everything in their power to elevate his game. And the one way you can elevate his game is by giving him a dominant playmaker in the backfield. And I know people will focus on Saquon Barkley as a runner, but the way he's going to elevate Eli Manning is his ability to create mismatches out the backfield in the passing game. Now you have a lineup that features Odell Beckham Jr., Sterling Shepard in the slot, Evan Ingram at tight end, and a dominant playmaker in Saquon Barkley. You have a lot of easy one-on-one matchups that should make life easier for Eli Manning.
Kurt, why don't you start us off with this pick, because you certainly know how beneficial it can be to play with a Hall of Fame caliber running back. Do you like what the Giants did here and how they are supporting Eli Manning moving forward?
I think you love the pick. I mean, first of all, because of the talent that you're getting with the player. But, you know, I look at Eli Manning, and I know championship quarterback, but when they've won championships, they've played good defense, they've had a good running game, and Eli's been able to be a complementary piece, and he plays big at big moments, but he's not a guy that's going to go out and complete 70% of his passes and carry a team. So I love the move that we balance this up. Playmakers on the outside. Now you got a playmaker in the backfield. They've made some upgrades at the offensive line so they can protect him and they can run the football. I love the move. I think they've got a lot of good pieces. And as Bucky said, you believe in Eli Manning and he's still got a couple years left. This was the right move for the organization.
Certainly.
You know, I really, really like this pick. And part of the reason I like this pick is because of the kid that Sam Darnold is. We can talk about what he is on the field. And look, he's a gunslinger. He has athleticism. He can make plays off the script. But he's really a good dude, meaning that he has the right blue-collar mentality to help continue the culture change that's going on in New York. When you saw Jamal Adams come in, you saw the attitude change on defense. Where Sam Darnold's this kind of guy. This is a blue-collar kid, a kid that was a linebacker, wide receiver during his time in high school. So he doesn't have some of the pretense that some quarterbacks have. I believe he's going to be a guy that understands how to handle the pressure of playing in New York. He's going to go about his business, and he's not going to worry about the fanfare of being a celebrity. For me, I like quarterbacks that are all in, all ball, all the time. That's what Sam Darnold is. Stay there. I'm going to give this a B+. And the only reason I'm going to give it a B+ is because typically you go for a pass rusher over corner, but this is the best corner in the class. When you talk to people around Cleveland, they wanted a dominant shutdown corner. Remember, years ago they had Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden played at a high level for a long time. Denzel Ward has a game that's a little reminiscent of Joe Hayden. He's tough, he's fast, he's physical. He can lock up number one guys on the perimeter. And look, he's not afraid to put his face in the fan. This is a really tough player. I know he's a little slight, but in this division, you got to look at those receivers. Antonio Brown, you need a speed guy that can match up with him. Whoever the Baltimore Ravens get, you have to have someone that can lock him up. A.J. Green and some of the other guys, John Ross, Denzel Ward can go toe-to-toe with all those guys. Good pick for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, I give this an A+.
A+?
I mean, you may get arguably the best player in the draft with the 5th overall pick. You talk about a team that really knows their identity or is trying to get back to the identity that made them a Super Bowl champion. The Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl 50 because they could knock quarterbacks around and they could cover. Well, now you have Von Miller teaming up with Bradley Chubb. You have Shane Ray also rotating in. So now you can hunt without having to blitz. You still have 2 lockdown corners in Bradley Roby and Chris Harris. I like this pick because they're going to go back to the recipe. They're going to play solid on offense and try and dominate you on defense. This is the way that Denver Broncos have to win. What we're seeing right now, this is an A. What we're seeing now, 2 teams that have unbelievable belief in their quarterbacks. We saw the New York Giants are building around their quarterback, making sure they get him. And now the Indianapolis Colts are confident that Andrew Luck is going to come back and be the player that he was. Quentin Nelson gives them a rock-solid player in the middle of that offensive line. I believe Frank Reich is going to make a concerted effort to not only throw the ball all over the yard, but they're going to run the football. And the best way you can make sure that you run the football, have someone that can control the A-gap. There are a lot of people that were excited about Quentin Nelson, said that he was maybe the best player in the draft. I wasn't necessarily of that belief, but I do believe in a run-oriented offense, he can knock people around. He is what you call a furniture mover. He is going to move people off the ball.
We will find out.
Here we go. Josh Allen was their guy from the jump, and here's why I believe that Josh Allen was their guy. Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and a bunch of those guys come from the Carolina Panthers. They had an athletic quarterback that was a dual threat with a strong arm, but wasn't a great accuracy guy in Cam Newton. I'm not saying that Josh Allen is exactly Cam Newton, but there are a lot of similarities. Big, strong arm passer, A-plus arm talent. Not necessarily precise as a pocket passer, but when he makes plays and when he's hot, he certainly can get it done. Plus, you're getting a Cam Newton-type specimen without all the extra stuff that Cam Newton brought. I believe he fits into their blue-collar locker room. I think this is solid. This is what they wanted. Now let's see what he brings to this team in Western New York.
Yeah, I think, I've got him further back because I don't know if his areas that need to be corrected, like anticipation, like some of the mechanics, I really question, I worry about it. But I think Bucky makes a great point. The more you think about the Cam Newton comparison, the more you realize that there is actually a lot of validity when you're really honest about who Cam Newton is.
A solid pick. This is an A pick in my mind. When you look at the Chicago Bears and what they're trying to do, all of the attention in the offseason has been on their offense and what they're trying to do with the quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. Let's continue to make steps and strides with this defense. Roquan Smith is a dominant player. Remember, Vic Fangio in San Francisco, when he built that dominant defense, he had a guy in the middle, Patrick Willis. Roquan Smith has some similarities in terms of his explosiveness, his sideline-to-sideline ability, and his alpha dog mentality. I love this pick in Chicago. I think he is a nice fit for the Monsters of the Midway. I'm going to give this a C minus. I'm not.
All right, here we go.
I'm not a lover, Mike Lee. Look, I know he's the best offensive tackle in this group, but man, look at some of the guys that are on the board. Derwin James and Tremaine Edmondson and some of the other guys.
All right, let's get it then. Charlie wants a piece here, Buck.
But I will say this to come back on it. Jimmy G is the quarterback. We have said, I tweeted out, everything is about committing to building around the quarterback. If you feel like you have a weakness at right tackle, you have to protect Jimmy G. He's the franchise quarterback. I love this pick. I believe that Josh Rosen was the best prospect available in the draft. I believe he's going to a team in a situation that is absolutely ideal for him. He's staying on the West Coast. He's playing in an environment that is friendly to his game. But when I look at his offensive coordinator, Mike McCoy is going to build an offense that works for him. This dude is polished. He is ready to go. He's a natural thrower. He has tremendous arm talent. The one thing that they have to make sure they do, they have to find other pass catchers on the outside of Larry Fitzgerald. If you surround him with pass catchers, he is going to be outstanding. They got a running back in David Johnson. They have Larry Fitzgerald. They need one other pass catcher because I feel like Rosen is much like Matt Ryan. You put him around elite level talent, he can get you to the promised land. This is a nice, solid pick for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are sitting here at 11. Look, we talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick potentially sliding a couple weeks ago, not through any fault of his own, but just because how crazy the top 10 could be. This is a guy that is a versatile playmaker. We talk about a natural nickel corner that can do a bunch of different hybrid things. In this division, when you're playing against the Patriots, that put a lot of stress on you with the way they use their tight end, moving Rob Gronkowski around. Well, man, maybe now you have an eraser, a guy that can match it with Rob Gronkowski outside of the box and match him. I like the versatility. I like the athleticism. I like the toughness. Solid overall pick for them.
Do you think they would have taken Rosen if he were there?
You know, I wonder, because here's what I wondered. Like, I know there have been some reports about them having conversation with Ryan Tannehill, but it really depends on what do they think about Ryan Tannehill. Do they really believe that he's still a franchise quarterback? I'm not 100% sure that Rosen would have been the pick. Maybe they would have had to have that debate. But I do know once he's off the board, it's easier to pick Minkah Fitzpatrick at that point. I'm going to give this a solid A.
Solid A.
This is the first time, and I can't remember, since Gerald McCoy's been in Tampa, he's actually going to have a playmate. He's going to have someone in the playpen that can actually do some damage with him. You get a big, look at the dimensions, 6'4", 347.
Big baby.
Athletic. This is a guy that was a running back in high school. So now you're putting a guy with this kind of athleticism alongside Gerald McCoy. A lot of people were excited in the offseason when we saw Ndamukong Suh paired with Aaron Donald. The new craze, the new trend in the league is to be able to pressure you from inside out. Now you have Vita Vea who can stop the run, also gives you a little pass rushing presence with Gerald McCoy. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers can now affect the quarterback up the gut. And look at the quarterbacks in the division. Drew Brees is not a runner around. Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston, those guys don't run around. Cam is the only one that's athletic. Pressure those guys in the A-gaps. Hey, when you're awful on run defense, you got to get some big bodies up front. Daron Payne is a very, very good pick. He's a solid player at the point of attack, and we saw him in the playoff game. He took over, dominated on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Quickness, power, strength, and explosiveness, those things you certainly like. He also flashes a little pass rush ability. At the end of the day, the Washington Redskins had to be better up the middle. This gives Greg Minuski an opportunity to improve this run defense by getting better talent at the point of attack.
The thing I really like about Daron Payne, of all the every Alabama guy I've studied, technicians with the hands, very strong at the point of attack, understand how to play the game. The one difference with this guy was he's just a more explosive player. He wasn't just a bull who was strong that you had a hard time moving him out of the gap. I mean, he had the ability to do some special stuff in space as well. And this is another one. A lot of teams think that he's got a chance to do something they didn't ask him to do at Bama, which is get up the field as a rusher. They have you hold the point of attack, and you're not asked to really get in the gaps quite like you're expected with a lot of defensive tackles. So I think he's going to be a different type of player in the NFL.
All right, so when you look at this pick, Marcus Davenport, I give it a B+. The New Orleans Saints have been leaning on Cam Jordan as their #1 pass rusher for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and he hasn't had a partner. Not since Junior Gillette has been able to come off the edge have they had multiple guys that can give you double-digit sacks. Well, in Marcus Davenport, you're getting a stand-up pass rusher with outstanding first-step quickness and explosiveness. Yeah, we could talk about him playing at UTSA and is he ready to make the jump, but I think with the athleticism that he has, surrounded by the cast of playmakers that they have on their defense, he can be another cog in this defense, making the climb into a top-5 unit. I like his athleticism. I like his toughness. I like the production. He can be a solid player. We heard Charlie Casserly at times on Path to the Draft rave about this guy's toughness and explosiveness. He could be a very, very good player in New Orleans. I'm going to give him some C+. The only reason you have to be careful when you start picking for need instead of taking best player. Look, Quentin Miller is an outstanding athlete, did a great job of lighting up the combine. But what he did at the combine didn't match up to what you saw on tape. So right now, you're the Oakland Raiders. You are just banking on his upside and potential. Nothing that you saw on tape suggested that this guy should be a top 15 or so pick based on how he played during his time at UCLA.
You know, we've heard red shirt year for quarterbacks in the NFL. There were some analysts and folks, the scouts that watched tape that said Quentin Miller might need a bit of a red shirt year because he's got the raw, he's got the raw elements, I guess. He's got the stature, but his technique, I think, was coming into question an awful lot.
Yeah, technique was coming into question. When he faced the elite dudes, they had their way with him coming around the edge. Look, you're putting him in a division with pass rushers galore. We talked about Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, Joey Bosa, and Melvin Ingram. I mean, you still have Justin Houston to still deal with, tough.
Huge need.
Hey, this is an A+. This is an A+ because it's a great pick. They got a player that some thought was a top 5 player at 16. They moved up to get him. And not only can he do all the things on the field, we see the versatility, athleticism, whether he plays outside or moves inside. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane are trying to create a culture in Buffalo that is one with a bunch of blue-collar players. He fits that. He's a hard hat and lunch pail guy. He's a worker bee off the edge. He's young. You talk about being 20 years old. Another rock-solid player to put in there. Buffalo ended the drought last year, first time went to the playoffs in 17 years, by adding a bunch of solid players that are just about ball. This is another player like that.
You mentioned, Charlie, you had him rated awfully high on your list. Why? What is it you like about him?
He was my #1 rated linebacker. Instincts. This guy's got excellent instincts. Okay, this guy's got the speed and athletic ability to go sideline to sideline, to cover. I thought he could play downhill against the run. I liked his ability to blitz. Some people say he can play outside. I've seen him play inside. Leave him inside, and he'll go to the Pro Bowl. Big need for the Bills, too. Smart play by the Bills trading up together. Interesting, the Ravens trading back because he's on the board. James is on the board. Derwin James. Calvin Ridley's on the board. A need for a wide receiver. Alabama general manager Ozzie Newsome there. Fascinating what the Ravens are going to do here in the 20s.
Well, as they trade back, here's why they decided to trade back. Here are the details of that trade as Buffalo jumps from 22 to 16. And Baltimore gets a third-round pick out of it, number 65 overall, while Buffalo receives the 5th-round pick of the Ravens. So they jump from the 5th to the 3rd. They move back 6 spots. Perhaps the player that they were looking for no longer there at number 16, Lance. But let's get into Tremaine Edmondson, your evaluation.
Tremaine Edmondson is a special player. I had him as the 4th best player in this draft. He's incredibly rangy. He runs like Roquan Smith, only he's 253 pounds. He ran a 4.54. What he does is rare because he's got the ability to drop in space and cover man-to-man. He can rush off the edge as a pass rusher, which they didn't ask him to do a ton, but when he did it, you could really see that ability. He's got unusual length at that position inside. He can't play outside or inside. He does have some busts in coverage, some mental busts that he's going to have to focus on. 19, going to turn 20. And, Charlie, you drafted a guy in Amobi Okoye, who was a very young player.
No, that wasn't me. That was after me.
Oh, that was after you. Because I was thinking that's, you know.
I'm not taking credit for that
you're
one.
Not taking, don't you put that on Charlie.
You don't get that one, Charlie.
Don't
That's
you put
my
that
bad.
on Charlie.
Hey, look, this is an A+. From the time that I met Derwin James as a high school guy, I thought this guy was very, very similar to Cam Chancellor in terms of the way that he plays the game. And when you think about Gus Bradley and what the Chargers want to do on defense, they are looking for a headhunter in between the hashes, a guy that can be an enforcer, a guy that can drop down and play that Cam Chancellor role. What you're getting is another all-ball, all-the-time guy in Derwin James. Loves football, loves contact, loves the physicality of it. You now have Derwin James that can drop inside the hashes and play that. You have Desmond King who can play that special role as a hybrid nickel. This is Gus Bradley recreating what he built in Seattle. I love this pick. I love their defense. Look, the Chargers are a team that were close to making the playoffs. If they don't make a playoff run this year, I would be shocked. A player. Look, I was a little off. I knew they needed a corner, but Jerry Alexander certainly fits. You talk about attitude, toughness, physical skills. He has all those things to be a lockdown corner on the outside. He's quick. He does a great job of competing at the highest level. I believe he has an opportunity to be a special player. The thing that will happen, he's going to be challenged on the outside. He's going to have to play the Golden Tates, the Stephon Diggs, the Adam Thielens, and those guys. Can he lock down and hold his own? We'll see. But this is the kind of player that they need to play the scheme that Mike Patton wants to play.
I tell you what I really like is I think Green Bay just played this perfectly. The teams that I heard that were dying to trade back were Detroit, who's up at 20, was Seattle was dying to trade, and there was one more. I'm trying to remember who it was also toward the back end. But I think what Green Bay did was they did their homework. They knew they had a trade partner that Seattle wanted to get out. And, of course, people know John Schneider in there. He came from Green Bay. And I think when they had the opportunity to pick up the extra one, they knew that they could come back up the board and still get one of their cornerbacks like Mike Hughes, like Jair Alexander at 18 if the opportunity presented itself. So I think Green Bay actually did a brilliant job with maneuvering the draft.
Solid pick. This surprises a lot of Cowboys fans because everyone expected them to find a replacement for number 88. But this is about really upgrading the talent on their defense. You have Shane Lee. You also have Jalen Smith, but you lost Anthony Hitchens in the offseason. You need another linebacker that can have the versatility and athleticism to play. I believe Vander Esch gives them some versatility, gives them some playmaking ability, gives them some length. Ideally, in my mind, I think he's a guy that could probably be a Mike linebacker. When you go back and you look at the Chicago Bears and the way they play their Tampa 2 scheme, you can envision Rod Marinelli using him as the middle-of-the-field runner in that Tampa 2 defense. This is a talented athlete, a player that kind of came on this year, but he has all the traits and intangibles that you look for at the position. We'll pick Suey. I'm going to give this a C.
Gentleman C? Gentleman C or a summer school C, C, C?
A summer school C.
Okay.
A summer school C. Look, I'm not going to bag on the player too much, but I don't know. I felt like there were better players on the board. We had James Daniels. We still have Hernandez. We still have all those interior guys that we've talked about for so long.
Well, you got Billy Price, whose doctor said he's going to make a full recovery.
According to Pro Football Focus, this guy graded out well. I think he's one of the highest rated. But when I look at him on tape, he's not a guy that necessarily finishes. Plays the pivot, does a good job of making initial contact. But I didn't see a great finish. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to bully some of those defensive tackles that are inside. Solid, sticky player. I like it, don't necessarily love it.
OH.
I-O.
Back-to-back centers, Buck.
Back-to-back center. Look, prior to his injury at the Combine, this is a guy that was rated as the best center in my estimation. I thought he was tough. I thought he was solid. I thought he did a great job of moving and climbing to the next level. Because he has some versatility, not only as a center but as a guard, Man, I don't like that individual picture, though, the little bald head. It's kind of
a little scary, huh?
But he's a solid player, 55 consecutive starts. You're getting a very experienced pivot. The Cincinnati Bengals are remaking their offensive line. They want to be more of a power-running team with their new O-line coach. He fits the mold. Look, this is a solid pick. Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick were at Alabama's pro day. So the Titans had to make a move to make sure they got the linebacker that they wanted. What you're seeing, the Tennessee Titans want to have a rock-solid blue-collar defense. Rashaan Evans is an instinctive playmaker inside. Does a great job of running from sideline to sideline, but he also gives them some pass-rushing presence on the inside. Physical player, violent, does a great job of working with his hands. More importantly, he is a thumper. I think the Titans needed a little more in between.
He got off to a little bit of a late start with his career. A lot was expected of him as a pass rusher. Made the move on the inside, and it really took off. He will play hurt. There were times that he was injured, and he talked about it. He will play hurt. He's a tough guy. You got to be if you're going to play for Nick Saban at Alabama. But he also gives the Tennessee Titans the ability to play inside as an inside linebacker. He can play will, or he can give you a rush option on sub packages where you drop him down.
Here you go. I'm going to give this a solid B+. Because when you look at the Patriots and what they've been able to do, they accumulate nice pieces on the offensive line. This is a guy that played tackle at Georgia, but I think he's going to project inside just because of the height. He survived out there outside, but I believe he'll be a nice guard. When you think about the Patriots normally place a premium on versatility. I think his versatility will allow him to play multiple spots along that offensive line.
We heard he might be making his way up, Buck.
Wow.
First receiver selected, DJ Moore.
First receiver, look, there's a lot of momentum building. I'm just a little surprised that the Carolina Panthers took a receiver because they traded for Torrey Smith. They had Devin Funchess. They still have Greg Olsen. I was thinking maybe a tight end was in the ranks. But look, DJ Moore is a guy that really came on like game busters, played with a bunch of different quarterbacks during his time in Maryland. What he is, he's a playmaker. He's physical, he's tough, he's great with the ball in his hands. Not necessarily the polished route runner, but he's kind of one of those guys that you got to get the ball in his hands and let him go to work. If you go back and you look at when they've been at their best, those are the kind of receivers that play for them. Our own NFL Network colleague, Steve Smith, when he came into the league, he wasn't necessarily a polished route runner, but what he was an explosive, a dynamic playmaker. DJ Moore is kind of in that mold. This is a really, really good pick for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to give it an A-. When you think about Joe Flacco and you think about the struggles that Joe Flacco has had, they are tied to the loss of a dominant player in the middle of the field. When Dennis Pitta went out, you saw Joe Flacco's game kind of go down. In Hayden Hurst, you get a complete tight end, a guy that not only can block, but he can make the plays down the middle of the field. He catches it. He is a true wide tight end. For Joe Flacco, a guy that struggles at times with his accuracy, you need someone that can really work the middle of the field inside the numbers. This should help him become a more efficient passer in the passing game.
I mean, no.
Ooh, I love it.
Big A.
Not a plus?
Is that A for Alabama?
I love it. I love this pick. I love what you can do with Calvin Ridley. Remember, when the Atlanta Falcons were at their best a couple years ago with Kyle Shanahan, they had 4 receivers that could give you work. They had Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu. They had Taylor Gabriel. And then, the little guy from East Carolina. Hardy.
Justin Hardy.
So you had 4 guys that can make plays. Well, now with Calvin Ridley, you're getting a guy that is probably a third starter. And Ridley, a polished pass catcher, a guy that does a great job of running routes. Not the physical specimen that Julio Jones is, but he's different and unique. He would be a nice number 3 to work against nickel corners. His speed, his quickness, his route running ability, he should be able to play effectively in this scheme and have a lot of success as number 3.
And, both Hardy and Sanu still for Seattle. Rashad Penny goes here, Buck.
So we can give this a solid B. Now, there are a lot of people that are surprised about Rashad Penny making the sudden rise up the charts. But when you really looked at his game at San Diego State, this is a versatile player. This is a new school running back, this kind of running back that really dominates in the NFL. A guy that can run it, but really he can make his contributions in the passing game, and he also has kick return ability. In Seattle, you have to understand, this is a complete reset. You're trying to rebuild this offense around Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson hasn't been the same since he lost Marshawn Lynch. Rashad Penny isn't Marshawn Lynch, but what he is, he's a starting running back who can run it and can make plays in the passing game. I think Marshawn was underrated in terms of his contributions in the passing game. Russell Wilson hasn't had that, and I think their offense has suffered because of that. It's a bit of a surprise. There are some people that like Terrell Edmonds. I couldn't find anyone that had him rated as a first-round pick. But let's be honest, we talked about this draft class where there were 17 or 18 legitimate lock first-round picks. This is a guy that probably had a second-round grade, so it kind of works. The thing that you're looking for in the Pittsburgh Steelers, they need toughness, they need physicality, and they need a guy in the back end that can play with some ball skills. He might be the right fit. He could be an upgrade over what they had in Mike Mitchell.
Where did he fit into your safety rankings? Because it seemed like Justin Reed was that next safety that was kind of on most boards.
I didn't have him anyway. I mean, I thought he was like a third-round safety. But let me tell you, my dad worked for Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin over there at the Steelers. And he said in draft rooms, they get their board, and their board is their board. There's no panic. There is a calmness in the room, and they just pull guys off as they get drafted, and when it gets there, they make the pick. This is why he's a Steeler, by the way. He's almost 6'1", 217 pounds. He ran a 4.49 at the Combine, so he can fly. He is an explosive athlete, as mentioned right there. He can play all over the field. He's an athletic wonder, just like his brother, Tremaine Edmondson. And he's an outstanding special teams player as well. And sometimes that will get overlooked. I do think that he has some issues playing the ball. We saw right there, didn't turn and get his head around. He has ball skills, but he doesn't necessarily have ball instincts down the field. So you may have to cover him up and play him near the line of scrimmage, maybe not have him playing on the back end quite as much. So very specific type of safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Earlier than I would have taken him personally. I thought Justin Reed may be a better fit, and I thought Justin Reed actually was my mock draft pick for the Steelers. I expected a safety. I did not expect Terrell Edmonds.
Well,
look, this is another one. When we talk about all these teams playing the Seattle Seahawks scheme, the Jacksonville Jaguars do it. The common denominator between guys that work in this game, competitive athletes, fast athletes, guys who have twitch. He is a twitchy athlete, meaning he has outstanding explosiveness, first-step quickness, and burst. We can question some of the instincts in terms of finding the ball, but in terms of creating disruption at the point of attack, he does it. Remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars are kind of at a funny point. They have some older guys, Calais Campbell, Malik Jefferson, those that play Jackson, that play on the inside. At some point, as they begin to sign Jalen Ramsey and some of their young guys, they're going to have to move on. This is an opportunity for them to add a young, dynamic piece at a real cost-efficient rate.
he left out national champion.
National champion. B+ for Mike Hughes going to Minnesota. This is what the Minnesota Vikings do. They do a great job of attacking needs maybe a year or so before they come up. This is a team that already has two solid starters, Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes. They had Terrence Newman playing in the slot for a while. They also had Mackenzie Alexander. They wanted to upgrade those situations because when you looked at them in the championship game against, not the championship game, the divisional round against the New Orleans Saints, you saw them kind of pick on their nickel situation. Mike Hughes is a guy that is versatile enough to be able to play inside or play outside. I love his playmaking ability. I love his technique. I think he's a savvy player. He is a nice fit. And the one thing we know about Mike Zimmer, he loves his corners. This is another terrific player. I think eventually he may surpass Trey Waynes and become a starter.
Yeah, there's some teams that really, really like Mike Hughes, and one of the reasons is because he's also an outstanding return.
Oh, I give this an A+.
A+.
A+. Look, when was the last time we have seen, one, the Patriots take a running back in the first round?
Lawrence
I think
Maroney?
Lawrence Maroney.
Yeah.
But two, when have we seen someone with this kind of dynamic ability playing the back end? They have been getting by with guys that were kind of pieces. Danny Woodhead. Then you look at Rex Burkhead. Then you look at Deion Lewis, James White. These guys are nice, competent players. We're talking about a home run hitter. When you look at the comparison, so many guys, I don't want to take the thunder, but so many guys on the road would compare this guy to Alvin Kamara in terms of the way that he plays the game. He's a talented runner. He's a guy that can catch the ball out the backfield.
Do you see Kamara?
Maybe a little bit. I think maybe because Alvin Kamara is kind of the suit de jour.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't see Kamara. What I see is a guy that you need physical? That's fine. Let's strap it up and go. Let's swap paint. You need me to show you a little wiggle? I can do that. What he is, though, is he's all about football. I mean, he's serious business downhill. He sees it. He goes. There's no dancing. There's not going to be many negative yardage plays. And he's a complement to the other type of running backs they have.
And the Kamara thing also a product of, I mean, you want to talk about measurables and not only just physically, stature-wise, but combine measurables. They're almost identical. They are the exact same height. They're the exact same weight. They have the exact same broad jump. Everything is identical about the way they're built and the way they performed. off the field. But when you talk about what you see on the field, I mean, we saw it in that national championship game, going up against that Alabama defense, and what kind of player, how explosive he can be.
Oh, he's terrific. He's explosive. This is something we haven't seen. So now you get Tom Brady, an explosive weapon in the back end. Oh, he goes right to the front of the line. Like, this guy is terrific out of the backfield, catching the ball, more juice than any of those players that are there.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the toughness and physicality. It's been a long time since the Patriots have had a guy that they can just keep on the field the entire time. I'll go all the way back. He's not this guy, but think about what Kevin Falk was for about 12, 13, 14 years for the Patriots. A guy that always had a role. Sonny Michel has that kind of potential and talent.
One thing I do want to mention, he's got a little bit of a knee concern where there have been some teams that question how long he will play, but they say he's very healthy now. Money, you're a college football guy.
What's the grade, Buck?
Oh, we can give it an A. And the only reason we'll give it an A because they set it up to get the guy. They took him at the right value. They took him at the bottom of the first round where they knew they could get him because it wasn't going to be a high market for his services. Secondly, they have a coaching staff that is very, very familiar and comfortable dealing with these kind of dual athletes, dual threat quarterbacks at the position. Marty Morwick, Greg Roman. Marty Morwick dealt with Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb. Greg Roman dealt with Colin Kaepernick, and we saw them play at a high level. Then you look at RG3 being there to be the backup quarterback. We've always said the biggest knock about having a system with a dual threat quarterback, if he gets hurt, then what? Well, now you run the same thing with RG3. Joe Flacco is the starter. He may be the starter for the next year or so. But Lamar Jackson is going to usher in a new era in Baltimore. This is an organizational pick because you have to be committed to building the whole squad around Lamar Jackson.